police section was on the second floor of City Station, as it is now, where crime prevention was. There was a sergeant, Joanne Wendler, who ran a pretty tight ship, and 13 women. Of the 13 women, eventually after about 8 months, 6 of us were allowed to go downstairs and work with the men in patrol. We were actually the first in Australia to do that. So it was a very big time. Mind you, we didn't do very much except drive the sergeants around and work the front office for many months. But after that, we did get a run, which was very, very pleasing because when I joined the job, it was to help people and make a difference. It really wasn't to look after lost children and only do shoplifters and missing friends, which is what we used to do. And of course, we worked the show, which was always a highlight of our career. Mini skirts, and it was a pretty exciting time for my male counterpart when we had to climb over the fence at Lanyon Station for a burglar alarm. He offered for me to go first, as you would. Yeah, they were very tight mini skirts. And a shirt which was at that time sort of fitted maybe. The buttons weren't that strong, and it was a little bow tie. We didn't have guns then. We weren't allowed to have guns. We were allowed to have a baton, and we were allowed to have handcuffs, and they were carried in our handbags. So the handbag was a very, very big, like a brick, about that. And most policewomen walked lopsided because of the sheer weight in this bag. So yeah, it was a formidable weapon in itself. Actually, you could swing it. And I have been known to do that to defend myself and to defend my partner. So yeah, no, we didn't have guns at first. We weren't trusted. And then when we finally did get guns, we got little guns. They were a 25 Walther. People used to say you could throw it at them and you'd have more probably effect. But anyway, yeah. And then finally we got the big guns like the big boys. From going from policewomen section to general duties, and then on to there I went into the detectives, working in the drug squad, which was the only place where women could work at that time in the detectives. Hit a bit of a hurdle. I was transferred back to legal division because I happened to do shorthand, and I was the secretary for the officer in charge for some 6 months because that was my sin, doing shorthand, but so be it. Learning experience, let's put it that way. After that, back to GDs, and I suppose after I had 2 children, and after having 2 children, and I stayed on the road operationally in operations even during my pregnancy, which was very interesting. I was the first woman to do that, to stay operational, and it was a bit of a challenge, but anyway, so be it. And probably my biggest highlight in some ways in the ACT was the dedicated community police officer for Baringa Gardens. You probably don't recall it. It was a welfare housing estate. There were 1,500 people who lived in 3 streets, and in those 3 streets nearly everybody had some sort of a problem. So it was a very, very challenging role for 2 years, and the recruits used to cut their teeth working with me. I could tell you, when I was the most frightened, and I could tell you when I was the saddest, and I could tell you when I managed to help someone, or when I managed to get someone off the streets who was a particularly violent person. It's hard to have a highlight like that. Probably the highlight is the camaraderie, even though we were women and to a certain degree seen as inferior by many, many members. Once you establish your credibility as an officer, you were treated equally, and to experience the things that you experience in policing, to talk to somebody who's also been there, done that and understands, that makes the difference. So I suppose, that sort of culture of, in a way, inequality for women also had a nurturing effect because the men were very protective of us and certainly quite concerned if we were in trouble, which was lovely, of course. And we were quite concerned when they were in trouble too, which was lovely for us too. The job is an interesting job, and women say, would you join again? Yes, I probably would. At the time, it was one of the few jobs that had equal pay for women in '74, so that's scary. And also we were allowed to have superannuation, which in those days most women couldn't have superannuation. It's not why I joined. I joined because I wanted to help people, and a New South Wales police officer had come to lecture at our school in Newcastle, and she sort of sold me, I suppose, when I was 14. Col Winchester recruited me back in the Tech College in Newcastle. It was a very interesting era